Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 92, Redemption Comics with Corissa Grant. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank
And
you for having
we,
me.
if anybody, not a problem. We first met being on a friend that we both know on her show. So thank you for that. And yeah, just so before we get into your comic, the typical question, what made you want to do this not just as a hobby as a kid, but you wanted to do this as a career and just as a career?
Well, I grew up watching horror movies, even when I wasn't supposed to be. I was 6 when I saw my first
Same
horror
here.
movie. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And Cujo
Classic.
was around the same time. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I was hiding on the stairs while I was watching the marionette scene with the veins. So that's what
Hmm.
I remember as a 6-year-old. And
Yeah.
then my brother got me into comics, and my first love of comics was Ghost Rider. And then what set me on the path of this part was I became a role player, I'm dyslexic. So when I started role playing, I did one-liners, and over 4 years, I got to where I can actually reply with like a 1,000 words or so. And
Hmm.
I had this story idea for 17 years. And I met the right person, and I said, "Do you want to do this story with me?" And they said yes. And then 2.5 years later, we wrote 10 novels. So we have
Nice.
10 novels. 5 of them are this series, and 5 is another series that we're still playing with. We still write. Um, and We never run out of ideas. So, what
That's a
started
good
the
thing.
yeah, the started the entire thing was actually Resident Evil 2, the video game, originally.
Classic.
Yeah, well, I didn't even own a PlayStation, and I saw a commercial for when Leon gets attacked by the crocodile in the sewer, and
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
I don't know why. I went to my parents and said I need to own this, and we went out, bought went out, bought PlayStation, rented the game. I couldn't get Leon to move at all. He just kept walking back into the fire. There was no instructions, no nothing. I gave up on the game, and I threw it across the room, and my older brother came in and started playing it like it was nothing. And I was so
Yeah.
pissed.
That's
so I
usually
kicked,
how it is.
yeah, so I kicked him out, and I started playing, and then that was it. I just fell completely in love with it, and I was like obsessed with everything Resident Evil after that. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I role played that a lot.
So with you, you do the writing, you don't do any other artwork.
Mm-mm.
Like, did you go to school for that, or is it all self-taught?
It's all self-taught. It's
Hmm.
Yeah, I used to do, like, I did a couple of English classes, like literature and all that, but I mean, my degree is bachelor's in criminal justice, so I didn't really do anything with it. I just had a huge interest in it. Whenever I went for a job interview, they'd be like, "Why did you do criminal justice?" It's like, it was cool. I liked it. I
Hmm.
studied it. But no, I just wrote out of pure it just pure enjoyment. It wasn't planned. It was just like, well, we have this
Hmm.
really epic story that we wrote. It's absolutely amazing, and I didn't want to waste it. So I thought comic books would be perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, here I am converting my novels into scripts, which is
Oh,
not as
so these started off as novels and
yep,
now into comics.
yep,
Awesome.
yep.
So for
I'm
anybody, yeah. So for anybody out there, like starting out, how difficult was it for you, or was it not, to basically take that novel and transition into a comic? Was there a lot of stuff you had to cut out just to minimize it so it's not like so much wording in a panel?
So I would say first I jumped into this with no knowledge whatsoever. So it's
Gotcha.
better to be lucky than smart.
Hmm.
So I literally hired an artist, and then I went to bed thinking I have no idea how to write a script. I have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
So the next day I woke up, I watched a YouTube video, and I was like, I hope I can do this. And I started writing the script and converting it, and it was done before you know it. However, like you said, you have to writing a script is way different than writing a novel, and I would say the hardest part is cutting the dialogue, because you can say whatever you want when you're writing a novel. But obviously, I learned after I wrote the first script that my letterer is like, you're going to cover up the entire art with this script.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, right. So I would say the most difficult transition from novel to comics would be the dialogue. Was just learning what to cut, what not to cut. You know, and other than that, I really didn't have to cut much. I think I switched a couple of things for issue 1 just to move it around so it's made more sense, you know, kind of thing. And so I cut out a little bit in issue 1, but after issue 1, I don't think I really cut out anything except for dialogue, you know, like and other than that, so far I have book 1 converted. It's 7 issues. And they're all around 90,000 words. So they're probably all around. The 5 books are probably about 7 issues each. And so far so good. So hopefully they're all about between 28 and 32 pages each. So the last one's 42. I'm going to try to even that out. But what happened was I wanted to stop at specific parts, you know, and I didn't want to stop in the middle of the conversation or in the middle of a vampire fight in issue 5. So I kind of, if you evened it out, it's 32 each, but 2 have 28, and then the last one has extra. So, awesome. But yeah, every time I write something, I was like, I can't wait to see this drawn. Like I can't wait to see this, what it's going to look like. And now when I used to write novels, I used to write like a movie in my head. Like I'd watch it, you know, as a movie.
Yeah.
Now every time I write, it's all in panels. How would this look in a panel, or how would this go, and all that. So it's definitely changed how I still write novel first. Always, even when I was adding a scene in issue 3, I added in their parents to kind of explain what was going on. And even when I was writing this one scene, I wrote it as a novel first, and then immediately after writing it, converted it into a script. So it's just the way I'm used to writing it.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So with you and writing everything, like, would you say that you enjoy more like the part of the story that's more dialogue heavy, or more action packed and fast paced?
All action. My whole thing is all action. The first 2 are the craziest. I mean, they get in a town and merge with hell, and everything attacks them all at once. And even someone said to me, it's a little crazy. And I was like, well, it's not called Worthy Chaos for nothing. There's a lot of chaos going on. It kind of evens out. I think the only real dialogue, especially Draven, he barely talks. He thinks a lot. He's like, he uses like 1 or 2 words half the time. But you could tell when he's in, like, I would say issue 3, they start to talk a little bit. Issue 5 is when they actually have a full-on, you know, connection talking thing. So I actually looked forward to that part, because it was the first time they actually had this conversation that was going on, and how they felt after being, you know, they were separated for 10 years thinking the other one was dead, and then they run into each other in town, and that's merging with hell. They didn't exactly have time to talk things out. So I would say pretty much issue 5 is probably the first time they actually have a conversation. And it was a pretty deep conversation, because they were, you know, talking about their feelings, and they don't do that generally. And like 5 seconds later, a vampire attacks them, and then they go hunt vampires. So there's definitely more action than dialogue. Yeah.
Well, with horror, you could get away with having a lot of action and less dialogue, you know. Yeah. But it just prefers like people's style, because some people like want more action, like how a lot of comics are now. But then you have like the old style, like Tales from the Crypts and all that stuff, where they're very heavy dialogued. But it just prefers what you like. But either way, it's just great how each story, even if it's like with Lori, how it's a zombie book, and we say that every zombie book could be completely different, and there's always a new story. And
Yeah.
the both of us, we write about supernatural stories that have to do with heaven and hell, but they're two different stories in their own way too.
Yeah.
So going into that, besides what I have in the description, if you want to get a little bit more about exactly what your comic is all about and what made you come up with this idea in the first place.
So the first thing that came up with it, I don't remember the initial spark. I was probably studying scriptures, or not. I'm not religious per se, but I love to study mythology and, you know, the scriptures and the demons and all that stuff. And I came across this angel called Remnal, and he is the judgment of souls. So he's responsible of judging the souls and bringing them to heaven. So for whatever reason, 17 years ago, I came up with this weapon, and it holds the souls, and it contains them inside this little thing so that he could transfer them. And it has 4 gems, which means something, and it's actually a gyroscope too, because it does have reason for later. So I made this up that this guy has this weapon. And in the story, it wasn't planned out this way. I just got really lucky and found him. There's a demon called Asmin, who is a chaos demon, and he devours souls. So I was like, this guy's perfect. And not only was that perfect, Remnal, his weapon is lightning. And Asmin is immune to lightning. Now, in the mythology, they have nothing to do with each other, but they just seemed like the perfect enemies. Oh, you scared me. Thing popped up, and I was like, what? But yeah, so that was they used to fight and have a war over this one weapon.
Yeah, brought up your Kickstarter, and congrats being.
Yeah, it's almost there. So the weapon is pretty much what everything's back behind now. Seraphina is an angel descendant. That her father is Remnal, and Asmin is Draven's father. So he's a demon descendant, and they're soulmates. And they live through each life together, and they don't remember anything when they meet. They don't have any memories of it. So this is one of their lives when they meet. And this one's a little different because in the last life, they kind of got screwed over, which is stuff you find out later. So in this one, their fathers are trying to get this weapon from them, because this weapon, with having the power of souls, can alter the war and either the demon side or the angel side. Now, there's another reason that Remna wants the weapon, but that's for a little later. But for now, it's mostly to get the weapon to get the power. And it's directly connected to Seraphina. So pretty much their job in this is to protect this weapon and to keep Seraphina alive. So it's a survival horror. So I always call it a horror adventure story. It's not just, you know, guts and stuff, which is fun. So I do have, you know, guts and stuff. Gotcha. The monsters in this one, because they're in a town merging with hell, there's hellhounds, there's zombie mermen, there's Anubis, there's zombies, ghosts, all that stuff, all contained in this one little town. That cover there that you see is a variant cover for issue 2, and it was drawn by Ian Chase Nichols, which is the artist that was on The Tick and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Red Sonja and all that. He's an amazing, not only an amazing artist, he's just amazing in general. Yeah, he's super nice and like the most laid back, nice guy, you know. And he's definitely modest. He doesn't know how amazing he is, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, so the first 3 issues is in the Kickstarter, and it's pretty much them joining up after 10 years of being separated and trying to survive. And there's things happening in the background that are messing with their lives. Their fathers are messing with their lives, and they don't know any of that yet, but we do as the reader. So that's pretty much what happens. So a lot happens. It's a little chaotic. It balances out eventually, but it doesn't really ever slow down. I mean, it's either good or bad, but a lot happens. So,
and that's why it's called Worthy Chaos. Yeah. I mean, the company is called Worthy Chaos. You know.
Yeah. So you can't yell at me. So I flat out tell you
with that key. right? So with that keychain, are you selling that during the Kickstarter, or can people
Yeah,
get
this
that
is,
anywhere?
you can get this both on the Kickstarter. I think in the reward tier, the $55 one, but it's also available in an add-on for $5.
Mm-hmm.
We also have campaign buttons. If you want to choose the angel side or demon side, you get both of them.
Nice.
And I won't say which one's better or worse, but demons have more fun, so there's always that one. And then we have like the mirror stickers, which is so hard to take a picture of because it's mirrored. It's a pain in my butt. And then we have other things. They have the PDFs. If anyone wants to just read the story, it's $5 for the first one and $10 for the first three. And you get both color and black and white, only because my artist did an amazing job in black and white. And it was absolutely hi.
Hey, Pops.
Hey, Pops. It's just awesome to see it in black and white, because he did such great line work, and I figured it doesn't cost me any more to get black and white. And then you can get issue 1, you can get issue 2 variant, obviously you can get all 3 of them, and you can always you can get them during add-ons too if anyone wants an extra one or whatever. So, and then there's like other tiers that are higher up. There's we have the 3D busts of Anubis. We have the plushie Anubis, which is my favorite whatsoever. I love this guy. He's handmade. He has the 3D staff. He's got buttons. He's got his whole outfit, and he's like super soft. And the first one's mine. So, yes, 102 away. So close.
Yeah, congrats. Because when did that Kickstarter launch?
Tuesday.
Is
Tuesday
it
at noon.
like days old? Day?
Yeah, like 2.5 days. Yeah.
Sweet.
So pretty much, I mean, they're already done. I already paid for them. Pretty much, the Kickstarter's to pay for the printing, and for next issue, to get that going. And we're probably going to run issue 4 in April. So, so there's that.
Now, when we were talking, you said that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I remember you saying when we were chatting that you redid issue 1 because it was old.
Yes,
if I'm correct.
So it's not per se old. What happened was my first artist kind of screwed me over, and not only stole almost $3,000 from me, because I was trying to finish it. I had to hire other people, so pretty much it cost me $5,000 for an issue I wasn't really proud of. The story was great, but the art was not my favorite. So I felt bad about having it, and I was going to keep going with it because everyone said everyone gets a new artist, it doesn't matter, and everyone tried to talk me out of it because I did spend all this money on it. However, my new artist is so phenomenal, and I just could not bear to see my characters not look the way they're supposed to look. So I bit the bullet, and he redid issue 1 for me, and I gotta say it was totally worth it. I mean,
that's good.
The art,
that's good.
Oh, yeah, it was. I was all nervous because I'm like, I put all this hype on me, redoing 1, especially to my artist. I was like, I can't wait to get this done and all this. But he nailed it. Like, he nailed the emotion and the darkness of it, and just the bloodiest scenes. He nailed all the monsters, and I just absolutely like our Hellhound is it's a wolf and a dragon mixed together with a Hellhound. And he comes back later, but he was there in the alley, kind of leading her. I have an Easter egg in every issue, by the way. My Easter eggs are they're either urban legends or something related to a horror game like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or a horror movie. and there's one in each issue and 2 in the last one of each book. And when the book comes out, whoever can find all of them first gets a 3D printed Anubis. So there's
Ooh,
a
that's
prize.
nice.
Yeah, my brother's upset. He's my editor and he's not allowed because I literally write what the Easter egg is in each issue. I'm like, you don't count. So
Right.
he can't do it. But I know Laura's going to try for it, which is so frustrating because I want to tell her what my Easter eggs are and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get so excited. I just want to talk about them. But
Sweet.
yeah, so they're all in there. But if you don't watch Resident Evil, you'll definitely miss at least 1 or 2. So, and
Nice.
the first one has a double meeting. So, and he's, it's plain sight what that one is, but because I let everyone know. But there's little things in the background too that some people might not get. But then the detectives that always like pick apart your stories, they'll see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, in the first book, when she's watching
It's
the
a
news.
really good book. Oh, by the way, people, you need to support the Kickstarter.
I appreciate you saying that. I do have a lot of faith in my story. I have very little confidence in almost anything I ever do, but I love this story so much. And I know if people read it, they'd like it. It's just getting people to read it. But in the first one, I'll give away one of the first to give them a hint of what they have to look for. She's watching TV, and when you always turn on a horror movie or any movie whatsoever, they turn on a channel and
Ain't
it's
that the facts,
automatically,
pops?
yeah, it's automatically what's talking, what they need to know or the
Appreciate it.
exposition or whatever. So it's kind of a nod towards
Mm-hmm.
that. But when she flips on the TV in the morning, it goes right to the newscasting and exactly where she needs to hear it. But if you pay attention, the TV is not plugged in. And out the
Yeah.
window is one of the angels controlling the newscast. So it's to get her to go to the town. But it was kind of a
Nice.
joke
Nice.
it's kind of a joke on how every single movie you watch, they flip the channel on and it's right at what they need to know, with
Mm-hmm.
no delay. Just happens to be on the channel that everyone needs. So it was kind of a joke towards that. That's not the Easter egg, but that's just one of the things that the little details we like to put in there and how you have to pay
Typical
attention.
horror cliche,
Yeah, yeah. We like
Yeah.
to make fun of it. It's kind of like I don't know if you saw, did you see Cabin in the Woods?
Classic.
I love that
I
freaking movie
love
so
it.
much. And it was so brilliant, and I love details like that where you're like, oh, that's why that happens, or that's why that happens. So I love those things, and they're in the background, and I like that. Like there's one panel which is really funny because I wrote the script and I still missed it.
Mm-hmm.
For issue for the issue 1 in the new panel he sent me, it shows them under the moon and they're talking and he doesn't believe she's real and she doesn't know if he's real and he thinks it's a dream. And I forgot in the script that I wrote, in the very, very background, you could see the ghost coming. And I
Yeah.
missed it. I didn't think it was that scene yet because I didn't see the ghost. And I like to zoom in on all the art. I check, make sure everything looks good. And I zoomed in. I was like, oh, there's ghost in the background. And then in the next panel, you could see the ghost get closer. And there's like a whole horde of ghosts coming. And it just cracked me up that I missed my own script.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was in the background. You could see it really, really small, but it's there. So I love details like that people might not notice. So yeah.
And like you were saying, with like you like to learn about like mythology and all that stuff, all about these different characters. And that's just what's so great is that Bigfoot or anything like that, so many different cultures has so many different like interpretations of what it is that you could write so much on just one character.
It's actually funny you mentioned Bigfoot because when they're in the car in, I think it's issue 5, and they're driving back, he's like, so is Bigfoot real? And she's like, no, not yet. But yeah, we kind of played with the truth and the myth a little bit. Like, for example, not to get ahead of myself, but our vampires that are in issue 4 and 5, they're called clotters because
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was weird that vampires that have no heartbeat like bleed like a regular, person.
Yeah.
So ours, their heartbeat actually bleed. Their heartbeat beats every 6 hours, just enough to not turn into rigor mortis. And if you stab him in the heart, it doesn't kill them. And which in mythology it didn't. It was supposed to pin them to the ground. It wasn't supposed to technically kill them per se.
Mhm.
So in ours, if you stab them and it's close to the 6 hours, you can destroy them. But the odds are they'll have plenty of time to kill you. So with ours, you pretty much have to chop off the head or burn them. But when they get, I think it's actually grosser, when anything gets cut, it's like clotted blood. So it's like this gross, dark pudding stuff that just looks so nasty.
Yeah.
But I liked to mix with the mythology of it. And they don't burn up in the sun, because the original mythology, they actually didn't have anything to do with the sun. They just hid in the shadows, but they actually didn't burn up in the sun. So ours is they don't like it. It hurts them, but they don't die in the sun, but they do stay in the shadows mostly. So, but yeah, we like to mix with the truth and all that fun stuff, as much as possible.
But that's why I think the show, like The Strain, did so well, because it was a different take on vampires. If you ever watched that TV show, it was good.
Yep.
I liked it.
Yep. Yeah, me too. I do like the different takes on it, and I do like that you could play. I called them clotters for a reason, and I said they were a species of vampires, so someone can't be like, that's not what vampires are. I'm like, it's a species, can't tell me anything. So it's just one species of vampires in it. I just like them because if they don't drink blood, they actually start to rot. So and they get weaker in time. So if they're not regularly feeding, there is some looking zombie ones type that look like an eye will fall out, just so I can have an eye falling out pretty much. But yeah, gotcha. they start to deteriorate and all that stuff. So we made up our own rules pretty much. But we like to stick to mostly, like, we always look up facts to make sure. Like, there's a part where she takes a rod and sticks the, what do you call it, the the construction rod, and she tosses it into him. And I was like, wait, does that have iron? And I had to go look it up, and it's rebar, the rebar. And I had to make sure there's iron in it, and I looked it up, and it's 99% iron. So I actually learned a lot. So I was like, oh, okay. Nice. So I had to make sure. So we made sure that works. And there's a scene with sharks later on, and I had to make sure they did something. And
hopefully not in a tornado.
No, I'm creative, but I'm not that creative. No tornado. But yeah, we try to look up things, because we're the type of people, when we watch movies, we're kind of like, that would never happen. And obviously there's the disbelief somewhere, obviously when it comes to Superman, you're like, oh, he's from another planet, that's okay, but he can't do this, something really stupid. Like the whole taking off your glasses and you suddenly can't be known who you are, so there is some disbelief, obviously, when you're watching, zombies and all that stuff, but we like to stick to the facts when we can. So we look up a lot of mythology and a lot of stuff like that. Like, I've been yelled at that Nubis isn't bad. I'm like, Nubis is being controlled. He gets good later. Just relax. But I was told Nubis isn't bad. I was like, he's not bad. And actually, if you watch him, he actually doesn't do anything. He's just leading them. So, I mean, he would kill him if he was ordered to. But yeah, Nubis is okay. Nubis is okay in my book. So.
And when you wanted to make this story, this was like the story that you had to tell. This was on the top of your head, or did you have other horror stories that you want to reach in the future with?
So I RP'd for 17 years. So I wrote a lot of stories, and I saved them all. But this one was special, and I had this role in mind, and I wrote with amazing writers through the 17 years, and they all wanted this story. They all wanted to be Draven. They always wanted to write with him, but something was missing from them, and I couldn't do it. But this one girl came on, her name is Jessica, one day, and I talked to her for 4 seconds. She sent me one reply, and I said, will you take my role for me that I've been holding for at that point, 15 years? And she said, I never take roles, but yes, I will take your role. So I sent her the starter, and that was it. We wrote nonstop for 2.5 years. So, and I went from 1,000 word replies to, with her, it was 6,000 word replies. So we kind of went off the railings with it, but we just loved it so much. We became so obsessed with it. And the obsession gets worse with the comics coming out, because it's like, oh, it's my story in picture form. This is awesome. So it did not help with the obsession. It made it worse. Every time I get a page, I'm just like, I want to show everybody and everyone,
Hmm.
and Lori will be like, don't show everyone the pages. Like, I want everyone to see my page. It looks so cool.
Right.
So yeah, if I was rich, these would be handed out for free. So, but I'm not rich.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, well, the story
Well,
is what's important, you know.
mhm. Yeah, I hear you. I like that how besides the supernatural with the two characters, it's a love story too.
Hmm.
And that's what I just love about horror is that there's so many subgenres. You know, there's sci-fi, there's slasher, supernatural, just so much stuff. And I can't remember if it's the title of the movie, but it just brought to me where a cop from hell kidnaps this guy's girlfriend and he has to travel to hell to get her back.
I love that stuff.
And
And
I think it's called Highway to Hell, but what's funny is that Ben Stiller's parents were in the movie as people that
really,
worked at the diner in hell. So this was definitely like 80s, early
yeah.
90s.
I have to watch this. I have not seen this one. This is that I love that stuff. And I always did like the damsel in distress. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
She is never a damsel, but she gets hurt all the time. We torture our characters to no end, so I feel slightly bad about it. But she's actually, she's a badass supernatural hunter, and he's a badass assassin.
Hmm.
And when they're together, he's always dark. Like they're when they're in later books and they're paired with people that they have to survive with, he's a jerk. He's an ass. He just is. But he loves her,
Hmm.
so it's kind of like he'll do anything for her. But I mean, he's he's kind of like an anti-hero. Like he's not, I mean, he's a demon.
Yeah.
But when he's with her, he's great. If anything happens to her, then all hell goes loose, literally. And if anything happens to him, she becomes not as nice as she used to be. So, but together they have this strong bond that you can just to see them having to fight for each other. I just love that. Like it's not a mushy
Hmm.
love story. Like they love each other and they would do anything for each other. So it's very hard to say it's a romance. It is because like I said, they're soulmates and they're bonded and all this stuff. And in all seriousness, them together is what fuels it. I mean, his love for her,
Yeah.
keeping her alive, is why he does what he does. Um, but it's a horror adventure, so it's such a hard genre
Hmm.
because you don't want to tell horror people it's a romance because they'll be like, oh, I don't want some mushy love thing going on. And then you don't want to tell a romance person that it's a horror because they don't want horror thrown into their love story. So I guess it's a whole new genre all its own.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's got everything you need in there pretty much.
hmm well, for like the next question, like my world is just like yours. You know, you have vampires, werewolves, tons and tons of monsters. Like you as a writer, how do you handle to not go overboard where you're just adding too much in one book when you know that you are creating a comic world that's so big and so many stories to tell?
I think that's pretty much why it's set up in 5 books. Like the
Hmm.
first 2 issues is crazy. I mean, everything's there. It's merging with hell and things are popping out. But then the next 2 issues are vampires. And
Hmm.
then, those are the first. So the first book is kind of introducing you to most of the not all of them, but a lot of the monsters, and kind of like showing you the world. And then
Hmm.
book 2 is pretty much they're in a haunted asylum, and they can't get out. They have to figure out how to get out, and that we have giant salamanders in there, and things
Nice.
like that. But it's mostly ghosts and salamanders. And then when you get to book 3, which I'm not gonna lie is my favorite, it's horrible to wait till book 3. But book 3 is them completely trapped in a zombie infested city. It's kind of like Resident Evil 2. They're trapped here. It's not the same reason as Resident Evil 2. It kind of is, but it's not. But there's lab monsters there. There's Anubis there running
Hmm.
around trying to, find them and steer them where to go. But there's experiments in there. There's some things, mostly zombies. But there's this weird monster that we made up. But we tried to keep it, like you said, to each story having kind of their own.
Yeah.
Like maybe one will make an appearance in another. Um, but we kind of kept it together. In book 4, they're on an island, and there's monsters there, and those monsters are contained to the island. And there's their own monsters there, and they travel to hell, and they there's more monsters there. But we try to make each book, they're all connected. Like they all tell a story, but they're their own little section of that story. So it kind of contains them all. So we kind of tried to keep it where you're not, except for 1 and 2, issues 1 and 2, not everything is thrown at them all at once, But in issue 3, I think we have the skeleton birds, which is my favorite, because she's like, how are these bones flying? It's kind of like she even says it, like, why are they doing this? So there's more in that. And then you kind of see like these spread out, like the zombie mermen, which is my favorite, they're all my favorite, but the zombie mermen seem to shock people the most. Like, how do you have these mermen that are zombies? And I was like, everything can be zombified. So they come into play later. And the island's interesting because they have laboratory environments that they go through, so each environment has its own monster. So like there's a forest and a desert, and there's a mountain. So they each have like unique monsters set for each one. So we didn't want to throw too much, like you said, at them at once. So it's a good, that's pretty much how we separated like what monsters are in what and what they're doing and what. And but yeah, it's series 1 is self-contained if you want it to be, and if you don't read the epilogue at the end, it's a happy ending. But I'm going to warn everyone before they read it. There's a series 2 we already started writing, which is I think I talked to you before or whatever, but that's series 2 has the Egyptian gods like Anubis, and it has Hades, Hecate, all of them, and then there's Greek mythology and all that. So that's its own world in itself. So there's a huge world going on in this story. So you'll never be bored, at least. I'll tell you that much.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, have anything else you want about your book before starting into, because it's almost at 39, so the rest will just talk about fun horror related stuff.
Pretty much I'm just gonna say that the characters are very well thought out. They have a lot of depth to them. They have their own thoughts. Draven especially, he thinks all the time. But the story is, if you just want you can enjoy it on the basic level of being just a horror survival, story if you want. And then, there'll be the hell things going around you. But there's a lot behind the stories. There's a lot of plot twists and turns and all that stuff. So we really we love this story, and we put a lot of passion into it. So I would say that that's the most takeaway to get, is that this story is definitely a story that was something we had to tell. It wasn't just, it wasn't about making money. It was about getting the story out there for people to see,
Awesome.
So
and that's what makes it even better.
Yeah. Well, I people have said if nothing else, they can tell that I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people are.
I can't quote it exactly, but everyone who's like a writer, like they say, each writer has one good story in them, and I could just hear you talk and reading your stuff. I could tell this is your passion project and this is your baby.
Yeah, it totally, like I said, if one day I won the lottery, these would just be released. It would just be like, everyone read my story. And if I could draw, I probably wouldn't even charge for it. But unfortunately, I do have to pay my artist, and he is horribly underpaid. he picked his price, but let me tell you, this is his first paid gig, Jonas De Costa, and he's amazing. He's absolutely phenomenal. And whatever profit I make from this is going to go to paying him more so that he doesn't leave and go somewhere else. But yeah, it's a passion for him too. This is, I mean, I paid him a little more for the last one because he worked his butt off to get it done on time because he's leaving for a month. And he had to get it done. And he didn't even want to take the money. And I'm just like, listen, you earn this, please take it. Because he worked night and day, weekends. I mean, that poor guy did not sleep for the last 3 weeks. So I owed him big time because if he did not get it done, I have 10 cons coming up this year. My first con ever is at the end of February. Thanks. I'll let you know if I survive. But at the end of February, if I didn't have one done, I wouldn't have had them. So I definitely owed him. But yeah. So read my story and enjoy it. And generally most times I'll give anyone a PDF that wants to read it, you know. But the pages are I did not skimp on the pages. They are 80-pound glossy pages and they are absolutely gorgeous. And I know I could have went cheaper and it probably would have been better and smarter, but the art is so gorgeous on the glossy that I just had to do the higher up. So I say the artwork is definitely great on the glossy. So I love it.
What company did you go with?
I went with Comics Wells Springs, and I have a love and frustration with them. They screwed up a couple things, a lot of things, but they will fix it. I mean, for my last, I ordered 500 copies and they forgot to send me a hard copy and it needs to be changed. And now I have the guilt of telling them to change it. And I feel absolutely awful, even though they said it's our fault. And I was like, I know, but you printed 500 copies. So I have that guilt now, but it has to be fixed. So, but they will fix anything. So it's frustrating, but at least they'll fix it. Because some companies will just be like, well, sorry. So,
well, I think a lot of people are going with Comics Wellspring just because it's like the typical one now. And I think I read up like, like besides having like just books shipped to your house, I think they have like a bookstore that you could set up and it's your personal shop and you just refill the books every time those books run out. So
great. I will look into that. No, I love that. I will say their website is exceptionally easy. You just get a quote and you're good to go. And hi, dead guy. He's my personal, follows me around and says nice things about me. So I like Dead Guy a lot. So, yes.
I like the picture there. That's pretty cool.
He's awesome. Dead Guy's awesome. And he has his own show, which I'm going to be on, and I can't wait for that. And we're going to hopefully do some stuff together with the comics and stuff. I love crossovers. So, anybody has anything that they want to cross over, I will cross over with my characters and do a mini series. I don't care. My favorite thing was the old, I like you stalking. It's okay. He's my personal cheering on the side. I love it. But I love, I have like so many ideas for my characters and I can put them in anything, anytime. So Lori and I want to do like a crossover at one point, just to have our characters pretty much yell at each other. So we're going to do that someday. And I can't wait because I always loved it in the comics. I like Midnight Suns. I don't know if you ever read Midnight Suns, but they had a crossover and I loved it. I think they went a little too far at one point, but I mean, I don't want to go through 20, comics to figure out one story, but I do like seeing characters on other things. And it's just one of those things I absolutely enjoy. So, but yeah. So anyway, hi, Dead Guy.
Now, you as a writer, we talked about the parts that you really enjoy. What are some of the parts really hard to write and difficult for you?
So like I said, my characters go through a lot. And there's a couple of things that would be the hardest. It's whenever they get separated. it's it's very heartbreaking and really weird. The reason why we have a spinoff, so
Hmm.
in issue 1, like you read, they get separated and they think they're
Yeah.
dead. Each other's dead for 10 years. I kid you not, halfway through this series, it actually pained us that they lost those 10 years. Like, it was an
Hmm.
awful feeling that these characters lost that time together. So in the spinoff, there's a I call it the sliding door moment, because there was a movie, Sliding Door, that shows you two things that happen by one thing changes everything. So what happens is they were supposed to run away that night, and since they didn't, they got separated. So in the spinoff, they did get to run away. And at first I thought, this is
Hmm.
going to be boring. They're teenagers. What's going to happen? But then I realized that she has no supernatural knowledge or power, anything. And he has no training as assassin, and they're still being chased by everything on the planet. So it actually wound up
Gotcha.
being this incredibly intense story. And we're already 25 issues into it. And it was just that, them being separated, and the further we got into the series, it was so hard for them to deal with that 10 years, because it weighed on them. It actually it closed off their hearts, and they had a hard time not trusting each other. That never left, but they had a hard time opening up to the other person. And I would
Hmm.
say that separation was the hardest thing. And then to get the spinoff, we loved it. And then in the spinoff, we tortured them even more. But that, I would say, anytime we have to separate them in the story, it is weirdly complicated.
Gotcha.
It's painful. And there's another part that's painful, which I can't really talk about because Lori will kill me for saying it. But there is another part that actually pretty much made close to tears to write it. So but
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm very emotionally involved with my story. So,
Nice.
but that's,
Now with you, now with you,
good.
you have the horror, you got the gore going on. Is there a limit to how much gore you would do? Because some people have limits, some people don't.
um I don't. I mean, when I talked about it, I was on Timothy's show. He asked me what grosses me out the most. Breaking bones. Now, I will do it
Hmm.
in the story, but when the bone breaks, that it's piercing through the skin, that that is way worse than ripping out all the guts or ripping out a bleeding heart. I don't care. Chopping off heads, pulling out the brain. I don't care. When someone trips and the bone comes out of their ankle, I'm like, oh my god, I can't look at it. Um, and the only other thing I would say would make me cringe is, and it does for most people, so it's nothing special, but the eyes, getting punctured in the eye and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I would say those two things make me cringe, but nothing's off the table when it comes to the gore and stuff. Most of ours is the monsters with the gore. Besides
Yeah.
her human parents getting completely tortured. Yes, the snappy sound is the worst. I can't stand it. Um, I don't remember what I was watching. There was something. Was it Friday the one of the Friday the 13th, or I don't know what it was, but there was all this gore and everything going on. It might have been Freddy versus Jason, but it was all this gore and I loved it all. It was awesome. And then somebody broke his arm and I was like, no, like, what are you doing? That is awful. So yeah, that would be a cringe moment for me. Um, but yeah, most of ours is the monsters getting destroyed and some of the demons and stuff. And we have torture scenes. We try to be not too bad, but there is some bad scenes. But whatever, they'll live. Sort of
Yeah. Let me see.
fight scene.
Yeah, that's a pretty good scene.
Yeah, yeah. I like the We have a fight scene. We have a plain old bar fight in the beginning of 4. Um,
Mm.
but my favorite is
Oh, can't go
5
with a
when
bar
they're in
fight, right?
the. Yeah, it's a
Can't
bar
go
fight.
wrong.
No. Well, Draven fights them in the inside the bar, and then they follow them out to the side, and she actually gets to fight there. But I love they go to in 5. They go to a warehouse with all the vampires there, and there's just a cool slaughter fest going on as they try to get out of it, and I look forward to seeing that. especially with all the heads chopped off with the clotted blood flying everywhere. It's just gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait to see that. And my artist is like, I love drawing zombies, and I was like, well, then you're in for a treat because you got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's at 50 minutes, so we'll definitely go into the horror stuff now. For anybody new on the show or people watching afterwards, besides the typical comic review show, we like to ask the creators, because they're horror creators, what's the favorite movies, slashers, because you have to love the movies if you're writing the comics or a novel in the first place. You know, you have to have like a passion, because I always say you could have a group of people arguing about who's the favorite superhero. You have a group of people arguing about what slasher's better, like Jason's better, Freddy's better, yada yada yada. So we'll start off. What is the first horror movie that scared you as a kid?
Um, funny thing is, I didn't get scared as a kid. Like I think I told you before we started. The first movie I ever saw was Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm
Mm-hmm.
Street 3, the Dream Warriors. Then I saw Cujo. That only scared me as an after effect when I went to the park and there was a wet Saint Bernard running towards me. When I was like, "What?" so that terrified me after the fact. But
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is, when I was a teenager in high school, I was in a class called Critical Eye, where we were supposed to discuss the movie after. We never did. We just watched movies. So this class should be in every high school ever.
Yeah,
So we watched the original It, and obviously you can't
classic.
watch. Yeah, you can't watch all of it at once. Well, the scene where he comes out of the drain in the shower and he pulls the drain apart and he comes up. Well, my parents, when I lived at home, that drain made that noise. So after I saw that movie, I could not shower with my eyes closed. I had to stare at the drain while I was showering my hair, which was not good to get shampoo in your eyes, but it was worth it to make sure that I wasn't taken over from clowns. The fear I had that didn't come from any movie, and I'm not entirely sure where it came from. For some reason, I could not put my hands above my head when I was sleeping because I thought something would grab my hands. So I don't know where that came from. I'm sure it was some movie at some time. But I can't remember a specific movie that scared me except for that stupid dog at the park that ran towards me like a psychopath.
Yeah, see, like with me, I don't know about the hands, but you're it's like even now, if I'm tired and exhausted, I don't like to have my feet hanging over the bed, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to hear I'm convinced I saw a shadow ghost when I was a teenager. I was pet sitting at somebody else's house overnight, and I was laying in bed, and the door was
Hmm.
opened, and there was a light in the hallway when I usually like pitch black. So
Yeah.
I'm staring at this. It looked like a shadow that reached all the way to the ceiling, and I remember watching it go across the room against the wall and just go and then disappear under the bed. And I
Oh, wow.
jumped up and went to look under the bed. And then I was like, no, why am I looking under the bed? And I just went and hid under the covers. And I tried to convince myself that I had fallen asleep and that's what I saw. I was like, I must have
Hmm.
fallen asleep. I must have fallen asleep. And it was like 10 years later when I was watching this paranormal show, and the woman's like, oh, I was laying in bed and I saw this shadow that reached the ceiling and it walked all the way across. I was like, what? What did she just say? And I was like, so I might have seen a ghost. I'm pretty convinced that was a shadow that I saw. And I never pet sat there again, so screw them. So I don't know what was going on in
Yeah.
that house, but I'm
Gotcha.
convinced I saw a ghost.
Now, with you talked about, uh, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and stuff like that. What would be like, is that your favorite horror movie of all time, or do you have a favorite? Mine personally is John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, on so many levels. That's why we had
Now,
it. That's why we had her like on the show talking about that movie.
nothing beats The Thing. The Thing is
Yeah.
both scary, suspenseful, and gross all at once. Especially the scene where he goes to, zap him with the paddles and the thing closes on his hand.
Yeah.
Like yes. I would say The Thing is my favorite. I don't watch it as much as like I watch Shaun of the Dead because I love Simon Pegg. And
yeah,
I loved
great
him when he was
movie.
on Spaced. So I love him. I don't know why, but I have an incredibly love affair with Wrong Turn. It's just something about these. They're not supernatural. They're just these
Incest
people in the
hillbillies.
woods. Yeah, it's just. I think the prosperity of the fact that it's possible to just. I mean, the odds of some ice creature coming at me in a dog form. Well, I do work with animals, so there is a possibility. But it's scary, and I love it as a scary movie. But for some reason, like Wrong Turn is just like that. I drive all the time, everywhere. I can, and back in the day, there was no GPS, so I can totally see that happening. So I have a love affair of those two. But I would say The Thing would be my top, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 would be my second. Yeah, I love. I don't. Wrong Turn has the sexy Faith in it, so obviously I have a complete love affair for that woman, and I'm allowed to leave her if my husband says it's okay, if that ever happens. So I love Faith, but she's in that, and all the characters are actually, they don't really do anything overly stupid, which is very rare in a horror movie,
Oh yeah.
And they do poke fun at the other horror movie where she's like, did you saw Wrong Turn?
I've seen all of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't watch all of them. They turned into porn like in the second one. I didn't watch them. But
yeah.
When she says, "When does anyone show up?" It's when you're doing something you shouldn't be, and So I was like, that's every horror movie. That's the trope of it all. So, but yeah, nothing beats The Thing. I gotta say though, I don't think I've seen the new one. I should probably watch it. I've probably seen parts of it. Is it worth watching? Is it? I mean, it's not gonna be as good, but is it good?
I liked it, but is it like
not the same?
Not the same, because I mean, let's face it, the thing in the second one is CGI. It's not practical.
I was just going to ask you, is it practical CGI? Because I prefer practical.
It's CGI.
Yeah, no, CGI. Forget it. No, I'll watch it if it. But no,
I like practical effects, but some people, they're like, and I agree with it. The sequel is more of a prequel to The Thing. Like, you actually get this, because basically it's telling the story of the Russian people. So how they went to the base and they found that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's more, but that's what probably sold me that the most is that it's CGI. I want practical effects. Yes, it's expensive, but they do so much more job.
No, see, that's why when I was on Timothy's show, we were talking about the makeup effects, and of course, it was all the older movies. I don't know if you ever seen the show Face Off, but I loved that show.
Yes,
I love seeing what they
like
come
that
up
show
with.
a lot.
I love seeing the makeup, and I think the only reason why I stopped watching, I don't even know if it's still on, was I think we got rid of cable, and I didn't have sci-fi, but I still love the show. So, well, he likes The Thing. Well, if Dead Guy likes it, I'll have to give it a shot. But
I'm not saying it's like totally bad. They had some good points to it.
It's just tough when I maybe it's because of my age, but I grew up, like you said, with the practical effects, and practical effects is harder to do, and it's just so much more enjoyable to.
That's why I enjoyed The Thing so much.
Yeah.
That you have like what there. You have like 4 different variations of that monster.
Yep.
You have the
head
dog.
Thing. Yeah, that's the head. The head running around.
The spider.
Like,
the
spider. Yeah. But nothing beats it, because at this moment when they were filming that, there was something there. It was there and it existed, and whether it was real or something they created, it was still a practical effect. So I have to go with the old school. So
but Dream Warriors is definitely a great. I think that's the first horror movie I've ever seen was Dream Warriors.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah.
That was. I'm always stuck in the fact that was an improv line when he was like prime time, bitch. That was an improv, and that just makes it so much better.
So now with the movies out of the way, with that, I know what your answer is because we talked about it on the Lori's show. But what's your favorite horror movie slasher and why?
Um, my favorite slasher. Um, I don't even remember what I said. I have so many of them. Um, what did I say on Lori's show?
You said Freddy. You said Freddy.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, favorite. You mean my favorite monster?
Yeah.
Nothing. I love. See, it somehow this just so wrong. This child killer became like someone you want to kind of root for in a way because he's funny, which just goes to show you how much humor is important. I love his humor, and if I had to pick one set of movies, it would be anything Freddy's in. And even Freddy versus Jason, I loved how he taunted Jason. I love, everything he did. So yeah, my favorite slasher monster, yeah, without a doubt, it's Freddy Krueger, and it's wrong that he is because of what he became and why he became it. But come on, the guy's funny. You gotta give it up to him.
I mean,
and
I
did not watch the new one either. So
one of my most favorite scenes was when in Dream Master #4, he turns the girl into the cockroach and then squishes her in the box.
I remember
awesome stuff.
That was, the effects were really cool with him looking in the trap and yeah. Shut up, that guy. Yeah, I always make fun of that the fact that he's getting revenge for them getting revenge on him. So it's like this revenge thing. But I can't help it. This guy somehow grosses me out, entertains me, and cracks me up all at the same time. I mean,
it's great because he could kill you in such creative ways,
Yeah. I mean,
like
he
with
could
Jason, you pretty much, like
So I'm not gonna lie. I've seen all of Nightmare on Elm Street except the new Robert Englund, and that's it. But I have not seen all of the Friday the 13th because when I watch them, I pretty much make fun of them like Mystery Science Theater. Like it's kind of like entertaining. That's kind of why I like Freddy versus Jason, because I got the joy of seeing Jason, but I got my man in there, and I still say he won that, so I don't care what anyone says. But I guess it depends how you look at it. But yeah, he's just so perfect, and he's like probably the only series of horror that I liked all of them. Like Wrong Turn, I watched the first one, and then they turned into porn, and then not that there's anything wrong with porn, but it just, and in all fairness,
that's the problem with a lot of
sequels.
That's the problem with a lot of horror movies now, is that they're just trying to go with the whole torture porn thing and not having a really good story.
Which is why it's funny that Cabin in the Woods makes fun of that. Like, oh, the slut goes first, or the horror goes first, or whatever, and let's pump some horror like pheromones into the air, or whatever. So my favorite part of that, though, was the ending, the slaughter fest, as I call it. I love the whole chaos of the end when they just let's hit the purge button, and even the unicorn. I mean, come on. I mean, the unicorn killing the guy with its horn. How do you beat that? So that was one of my favorites. But yeah. As far as monsters go,
we've seen a lot of movies. Yeah, awesome. Me too, Freddy as well.
Cabin in the Woods.
It seems like we've seen a lot of movies, and we might be around the same age. Were you a big fan of Full Moon growing up, like with Puppet Master and all that stuff?
I was, but I don't think, like Hellraiser, I really liked. I know his name isn't really Pinhead, but I always called him Pinhead. I always liked him, but I never connected with the Puppet Master. Like, I don't know what it is about I didn't consider Hellraiser the enemy.
Gotcha.
I mean, he tortured people that deserved it. So I'm one of those people that likes justified killing. You're a jerk. I can't wish that in real life. So, but you're in a movie, I could say you're a jerk. You're going to get killed. But I did watch the Puppet Master. I did watch the Wish Master. All I remember in that is when he told the guy the lawyer to go fuck himself. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, yes,
That's all
yes,
I
I do. And
remember.
he literally starts doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is the only thing that stuck out for me for the Wishmaster. But I didn't like it. I liked it, but it was I always go back to Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I can
Hmm.
watch those all day, every day, and I'll never get bored of them.
Yeah,
So same thing with Shaun. I haven't watched Shaun of Dead in a while, so sorry, Sean. But
yeah,
I used to watch that all the time. But
yeah. Because that's the thing with the '80s is that you had the slashers, but then you had a lot of like, you had Puppet Master, you had Critters, you had Ghoulies, you had all these like creature
Leprechauns,
features. Yeah, but you had creatures features, and you had all these different dolls killing each other. Like an old school movie that I
Chucky.
love is I don't know if you ever heard of it, the movie Dolls. Really good
That
movie.
one I don't know.
80s. But yeah. So with that,
His
what's
favorite
that?
horror
The
movie is
Notebook.
Notebook.
That's
Yeah, I hated that movie. Don't tell anyone I said that.
that's funny.
Is I'm not against chick flicks at all, but that was a little much. So
Yeah. That's
I
funny.
agree with you. But yeah, anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry. That just cracked me up.
No, it's all right. Was there, so you talked about Wrong Turn, you didn't watch the second one. Was there one movie like how people like, oh, after I saw The Exorcist, I left? Was there a horror movie where like you had to turn it off because you're like, this is way too much for me?
Uh no. But and I don't know the name. Wait. No, but I don't know if you heard about the movie, and I might not even say the name right. Siberian film or Siberian film or something like that. And I did not watch it, but I was reading someone's post about it. So of course I had to go because they said don't
Hmm.
watch it. So I had to go at least look it up. And reading the synopsis of it, I probably would say I would not watch that one. It was all, killing babies and doing all this weird, really weird rape stuff going on. So I would not watch that. But
Gotcha.
as far as any movie that I've ever actually a horror movie that I've ever started, I can't think of one that I was like, no. What
Oh, the
does that
second
say
one.
about me?
Yes,
Oh, the
the
puking
puking
scene.
scene.
Yeah,
We were
I
just
forgot
talking
all
about.
about Poker Guys too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even remember what happens because I've seen one so many times. I can't even remember what happened in two. Where did even two take
Well,
place?
this the second one took place at a different home, but why
I was gonna
I
say it
liked the
had to.
movie
Yeah.
was when they were it first introduced Reverend, or is it Pastor Kane, and where he's singing and everything. I As a kid, I got scared watching that movie because if you look at him and look at the chubby guy on the oatmeal, it just they look like each other. Just the guy on the oatmeal box is fat, while the other guy looks anorexic version of him.
That's true. I remember
Yeah,
that reminds me of The Thinner. That was an interesting movie too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
The Thinner. But I'm not going to say anything bad about I like Stephen King's movies. I haven't read a
Hmm.
lot of his books. I read Misery, which I liked, and It. But I don't think I've read much else. I prefer the movies, horror movies, because I like the gore. I mean, it's so funny because I
Hmm.
just saw one. Someone posted something today, and it said, "If you can watch a horror movie and sleep peacefully after, then you're a psychopath." And I was like, "No, but yes, I could sleep peacefully after." Yeah, Stephen
Yeah,
King. Like I said, he's amazing. I just enjoy movies more, which even though he hates all his movies. Um,
yeah.
but I can't see the gore in books. I have a vivid
Hmm.
imagination. But I read them. Misery was great. I mean,
Yeah.
I read that book a couple of times. And it was great. Though I don't know if I was too young to read it, but it kind of jumped around a lot, and I guess it kind of messed with my attention span for a while. Um,
Hmm.
but otherwise, I mean, I just haven't read his books. But I know they're good, obviously. But I'm just a horror movie all the way. I did not read The Stand. Everyone tells me you have to read The Stand. Isn't that's a huge book?
Yeah.
Not
Well,
that
it's like
I agree, but
even at the local library, you could buy like an audio book of The
Yeah.
Stand, but it's like 25 CDs.
Well, see, it's kind of weird because so I'm dyslexic and I'm pretty extremely dyslexic, and it's very, no one ever thinks about the concepts of, all they think about is that the words jumbled up, and it's not really how it affects me. It's words and stuff and sentences are mixed up. But for some reason I don't do good verbally. Like, so I don't have a, I can't do the verbal audio books. I would totally phase out, while they're talking.
Gotcha.
And I'm one of those people that everyone else hates, that I don't have to have them, obviously, because I go to the movies. But if I can, I watch movies with subtitles, because sometimes I don't get words as well verbally, but I can read it. So it's kind of a weird kind of dyslexia thing going on. My campaign, Kickstarter, mine's at Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can just
The link
search
is,
Worthy Chaos. We pop up.
yeah, I was going to say the link is in the description too. I put all your links that I could find on you. You did
Yes,
on your
he said
website.
to me.
Yeah. On your website,
Sorry.
you have like a link for Instagram, but it didn't pull up anything.
Oh, I better
Maybe it
fix
needs
that.
to be
I do have
updated.
Instagram, so I'll fix that. Yeah, I never changed anything, so I don't know why it wouldn't work. But Dead Guy named the name there, which I can't pronounce.
Mhm.
Yeah, whatever that is. But sandwich. So yeah, verbally is a lot harder for me. But when it comes to movies, like, any like Jeepers Creepers, I liked. But I will look up the true stories of them. Like what do you mean? All right, back to you. I meant amount. Oh, I have no idea. It was almost 900. I don't know what it is now. Let's see.
Check.
Yeah, 898. So we're almost there. Yeah.
898.
What did I say? That's what I meant. Back to my dyslexia numbers.
You close to 900.
Yeah, almost 900. Numbers are the worst for me. I mix them up all the time. But somehow I could read a lot, and fast. So for a dyslexic, and that is a thing that we can read fast, but it's just odd that I can read really fast. But when it comes to like audio and all that, I can't. See, Dead Guy's cheering me on. He's my own little cheering squad on the sidelines. So, yay. Oh, yeah, I know you backed me. That's why I thought it was weird you were asking me, but I thought maybe you were just asking so I say it, because Paul does it all the time. You see, he claps for me. He's the best. I have to say, I might not have a lot of supporters because I'm not well known, but the ones I have are amazing. So, Pops, Lori, Paul, Rich, Dead Guy over here, they're Edmund, they're all very, very supportive. So I'm very, very lucky. And I probably would not survive without them supporting me. So, and I have clients, at my job, I have clients that that back me up. So I'm very lucky that I have the support I have. So I got my favorite.
It's a great book. It really.
Thank you.
It's a really great book. If you ever need to come back on for more stuff to promote, you're more gladly, or even just to hang out to talk about horror stuff.
Anytime somebody invites me on their show, well, and they're fun. Like, there's two that I would be like, oh, I'm busy that night, but yeah, no, I would love to come on and talk horror movies. I will talk horror movies, horror games, anything. I actually like all genres of movies, but I always gravitate towards, obviously, the horror. So, but I like all the old ones too. Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. You're a horror fan and everything. Do you love the Universal monsters? And if you do, what is your favorite Universal monster and why?
Universal monster, as in, what do you mean?
Like Dracula, vampire, Frankenstein, all those.
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to say,
if you're a horror movie fan, you gotta love the OGs.
I love them all. That's why it's like I would say, I want to say werewolves, because I like the Mummy, but he's a little boring. Unless he's with Abbott and Costello, then he's funny. But
classic.
I obviously love Dracula. I obviously love vampires, even the ones that they destroy and ruin. But werewolves, the real werewolves, just the thought of your skin just, breaking apart and this fur body bursting out is just disgustingly terrifying. Yes, werewolf. It's just.
Thank you for subscribing.
I'd be quiet for a bit. No, you're not. Yeah. I like when he comes. I tell him when I'm in, so he could be my own little commenter on the side. But yeah, werewolves are just. I can't even think of. I like it better the old-fashioned ones like Werewolf in London and all that stuff, and even the
classic. Transformation of Werewolf in London is amazing.
Yeah, even for today, like then it was amazing and immaculate. Today it's still amazing, and it kind of always got to me where like, oh, what is their skin underneath, and it comes back out, like it's this whole cycle of skin that goes through. But just think of the pain of your jaw like being stretched out. But it's just I wouldn't say I would choose to be a werewolf, depending on which movie it is. But as classic monsters go, I would say werewolf would be my favorite. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, with me, I like to go with Frankenstein just because it's more of a tragedy instead of horror, true horror.
Yeah. See, Frankenstein's good too, but see, yeah, he's more tragic though, and then I gotta feel bad. Yeah. Like I used to feel bad for Jaws. Like, dude, like it's not Jaws' fault, I mean, one, they take his baby or her baby. So yeah, I have a. You know what I would have? I am awful. I would probably have Stockholm syndrome at any monster kidnap me because I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. So I like feel bad for except for Freddy, who deserved it, even though I'm his biggest fan.
Well, it's like the not Jaws, but the old school movie Orca. You felt bad for the father who literally saw his wife and his kid die in front of him. He wanted to get revenge.
Revenge is very powerful. I mean, we have a prequel we wrote, and the whole thing is about revenge and how Draven goes crazy to get back. I mean, it's vengeance and all that stuff. I mean, when somebody takes somebody that you love away from them, there's nothing left. You have nothing left to lose. So it's that extreme nature that just is to watch it unfold. I used to love that stuff. Like even in X-Files, I don't know if you've seen all of X-Files, but the one where the Pusher's sister made Mulder think that Scully shot herself. I mean, he was like, I'm going to kill you. I mean, just that fire. I love that fire that the person has when they think that they lost the thing that means the most to them. So, So that tragedy is, I still feel bad for Frankenstein. It's not his fault.
Yeah, well, it was Frankenstein. I just feel bad for him because I think it's in Frankenstein Alive that I reviewed on the show, but he's talking about like, he's playing, I can't remember if he's playing a violin or a piano. He's like, is it that I know how to play the piano or the person's whose hands are sold to my body knows how to play it? So he doesn't know what parts of his body is him and a part of another. And that's why it's so tragic.
I'm going to say it's the brain. Right? You're too analytical. It's the brain. Fingers. Actually, there was somebody that
you could just blame it on Igor from Young Frankenstein.
I love that movie. Right. That movie is we watch it. That's our Halloween movie every year. My husband, that he picks it, and that's Young Frankenstein, which is funny because he's way younger than me, so it's funny that he picks that movie. My new Christmas movie is Violent Night, so
I have not seen that yet.
Oh, come on, slacker! It's actually really good.
I know.
And I liked it way more than I thought. I mean, I love Hopper anyway.
Igor, not Igor.
Yeah, it's Igor.
You're right.
See, that's why Dead Guy follows me around. He can correct things. But yeah, Violent Night was, we bought it. Like, it's free now. I think it's free on Peacock. But we bought it because it was Christmas Day, and we're like, it's a Christmas present. But yeah, that one was, and I don't usually like movies with kids in it, except for The Mummy 2. I let it go. And of course The Omen, because that doesn't count. But generally I don't
Oh yeah, right.
like, yeah. But yeah, that it was, go watch it. It was good. I think you can watch it free on Peacock. So go watch it.
All
That's a
right,
good
I'll
movie.
definitely do that. Awesome. Well, we're at 120 minutes. Oh, Gary, you shut up at the last, but I have to watch it on the reruns.
Hi. That is a great picture. I like that.
Yes, he is a
Is that a
comic
T
book
Rex?
artist and writer himself. Yes, it is.
Is that awesome? Yeah, I like it.
Yes, his
I highly approve. Not that you need
yeah.
my approval, but I approve.
You would like you would like his work. It's basically dinosaurs versus aliens with humans involved and the government. Great shit.
Gary, I gotta read your stuff. Just so you know, I'm gonna read it. I love all that stuff.
But yeah,
I'm even gonna watch
so
65 million or something as dinosaurs.
yeah. Well, it's an hour and 20 something minutes. Had to end it here, but thank you for coming on. It's been great to have you on. And with all my guests, if you ever want to shoot the breeze, this show we'll pick topics like we've talked about werewolves, we talked about vampires. We could even talk about certain like video games, like you were saying, or horror movies. Total, you're more than welcome.
Oh man, anytime. It's great. It's great talking to you. I love talking to you, and I love talking about the subject. So it's win-win for me.
Yeah. Well, everyone watching, thanks, Dead Guy, subscribing
Thanks,
and
dead guy.
commenting. Thanks, Gary, for coming on and watching afterwards. And Pops, thank you for popping in. I appreciate that too. And
Awesome.
I'll see you all next week. Y'all have a great
Bye,
weekend.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.